Thank you. So I think this talk actually fits very well with the previous one because the previous one tackled something that is a little bit missing in this, but very related. So I want to talk about how we version applications because myself, it's something that I had a feeling like there's something I don't understand properly. I'm doing this, but I don't know exactly why. And I think we all, to a degree, just, where is it on? Do it without thinking much. We just do what we're thought to do by those around us, and we just do it by convention, really. And if we want to figure this out, we need to think about why we're versioning. Why do we choose the scheme that we do? And to make a sentence about this, I think that we do it to tell someone about why and or when the application was updated. And someone here, that could be customers or users. Yeah. It's just becoming worse. Yeah. Customers or users, it's one of the most common ones, but it could also be just your coworkers or yourself, and I'm going to come back to that. As for why and when, it's usually when we have breaking changes to the application, when it's a new year, or we just want to move things along, or it's better in a way. And for the breaking changes, that's sort of the one we all know. Everyone thinks that they're using Semver, and often you are. But here you have the major version, the minor version, and the patch. We all know this. Major is breaking change, minor is a new functionality but not breaking, and the patch is just not doing any visible change for the customer or for the user. But in fact, we are very often not adhering to this scheme at all. A study showed that about 1/3 of all software released with what they say is semantic versioning has breaking changes in minor or patch releases. So it's something that I think people just use because they want, that's just how you version stuff, right? But what you really have, I'm going to come back to that. Semantic versioning is suitable for APIs like software libraries and CLIs, where you have very strict adherence to what functionality exists, and on a very fine-grained level. If you break something, you should very strictly communicate why or what has happened. Then you have calendar versioning, and this is often also used for public-facing software that doesn't have this strict relationship with APIs and software, but where you want to convey on a more granular or on a certain granular level that you have increased either a big change in functionality or a smaller one. And here, some date information is usually or is always encoded and explicit. Ubuntu, for example, they have this scheme where you have the year, dot 0 padded month, and this can be used to indicate a version support. So, for example, Ubuntu, they have support for 5 years for their long-term releases, and then you know that if you have Ubuntu running on version 16.04, you know that it's not supported through with security patches anymore. You can also use calendar versioning for software or libraries that have a very strict relationship with external factors. For example, the time zone DB, where the releases are very dependent on new information coming in from outside, and it's not referencing. It doesn't mainly contain internal sort of releases. But then we get to the more. Can I get a glass of water? Then we get to the more interesting, I think, which is what we really use often when we think we use Semver. We have this idea that we release a version 0.1.1 when we're sort of happy with what we have, without realizing that it doesn't. It's not supposed to be stable until version 0.1, for example. And we use this. I think it's better to use this than semantic versioning, either this or Calver. But you should use it in a way that doesn't. It's not as easy to mix or to sort of misread as Semver. It should be explicitly different. But then the more interesting thing, I think, is web services, which is where you have the customer or the someone that I talked about in the beginning. That is you or your coworkers, because in web services you are the only one having any kind of relationship with what is deployed. The customer just uses the latest. There's always only one version of the software deployed at all times. And then you have external versioning done on the API level, so that's a different way of doing that. And what do we want from versions in this case? This, I would say, this is what I could call internal versioning. And how you do internal versioning, it depends on how you do promotions, as was explained by Karsten. So if you have everything going from straight to dev to production, you can just use the SHA, in my opinion. But if selected commits are specified for promotion, I think it's better to just use a simple incrementer. Just don't use 1.0.1 and then iterate from there, because if you do that, you end up with a more complicated situation than you would need to. But is it important how we do this? Again, not necessarily important, but if you spend a little bit of time thinking about what you want to achieve from how you version your applications, you can remove factors that might confuse you later on. So, for example, if everything is set up like this, you can choose to tag a new release for production. You don't want everything to go from dev to production, but you do this selection. But then you just use an iterator. So instead of having this sequence where you need to decide on a new version and you see that the previous was 1.0.59, but okay, was it really that? Or have I forgotten to fetch the latest tags or whatever? And then is this 1.0.60, or is it 1.0, or is it even 2.00? How do you decide that when you haven't really strictly defined what the reasons to choose the different numbers are? So instead, if you just use a simple iterator, I don't care. I mean, what I have is what I want to send out, and the only reason for me to have a number at all is because I want to see sort of the sequence of how things were deployed. But if there's no important information in the different parts of the versioning number, just omit them. So finding the scheme with the least complexity, I think, is a worthwhile effort. And even though I haven't actually seen this, I would really be happy to talk to you guys about why it's a bad idea. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.